an intercept for Crichton. Crichton, he's away. Is he away with the premiership?
Marshall's still going. Marshall's got Richards coming up outside. Now inside. Richards pursued. He pushes Jensen away. Pat Richards has scored.
G'day guys. So very sorry we couldn't stream this week. I was out due to injury and NRL Physio refused to cover it because my name isn't Alex DeWall. Instead, Aaron the Analytical Tiger has this week's tips. Just jump to the timestamp in the pinned comment if you want to skip what I've got prepared, especially if you're Peter Volandis, because I wanted to quickly address something I've mentioned before, which is the Wrestle and how people don't really know what it is, particularly some in the media and NRL administration, and also how the set restart rule, or 6 again as you'd hear it called by the ref in game, doesn't address it at all, whatsoever. So to start, what is the Wrestle in Rugby League and why is it used? Put simply, teams are trying to win the quick time event, that is the tackle, in order to slow the play the ball and set your defense. Because, no matter how fit you are, it takes time to get back 10 meters required to be onside. Then, also number up correctly to shut down whatever the attack is about to do. Unless, of course, you're playing the Storm, in which case, your best bet is sacrificing Jersey Flag players to the football gods, because Pappenhausen's mullet is covering you up regardless. Now, there are two parts to slowing the play the ball. One is the natural position of the tackled player. Of course, if he's on his back with his head facing his own goal line, it's going to take longer to play the ball, just by the pure mechanics of the situation, having to play the ball correctly, which means facing your opponent's goal line and being on your feet, which is actually massively inconsistent in the NRL, but that's an entirely other discussion on officiating. The second thing is the rule around dominant tackles, or, as is called every now and again recently, a strong tackle. Put simply, if the defenders get a dominant tackle and are able to get the attacker on their back, they get leniency from the ref as far as how much time they can take before getting up off the tackled player. And this, dear viewer, is where we come to the set restart rule. You see, a dominant tackle is made when the defender is, well, dominated. This starts from a strong first contact and goes through to when the ref calls held. Something Cameron Murray is great at is winning this contest and finding his front, which grants him a fast play the ball by the refs. See how this works? It's pretty basic stuff. Most fans understand, but here's the thing. The set restart rule only dictates what happens after the held call. For example, if Murray finds his front, but the defender holds on too long because, of course, you'd want to hug Cam Murray for as long as possible, then South would be awarded a set restart and get another 6 tackles. On the other hand, if the defender is able to get Murray on his feet and get more players in to help in the tackle so they can twist and turn him onto his back and slow everything down, that's perfectly fine and legal. And there's lots of leeway with what you can do outside a few dangerous techniques that put arms and legs at an increased risk, like chicken wings and cannonball tackles. Anyway, I don't want to waffle on too much. Good luck to everyone's teams, except the Titans and Dragons.
Yeah, for sure, story. That kind of went on a bit.
Hi everyone, Aaron here from the Cat Bros, dropping by to give you all my tips for the week. Last week was a pretty successful week for me, 6 out of 8, so I'll take that and roll with it. I only missed the Cowboys and the Dragons. Thank you, Tigers, for not embarrassing me and grabbing that second win in a row. Anyway, as for round 8, we start with the Broncos and the Sharks up at Suncorp. Both teams coming off wins, however, the Sharks were a lot more dominant, particularly in the first half than the scoreboard suggested. I really think they kind of took the foot off the trigger a little bit, and that's what let Manly back into it. Manly did not look anywhere in that game. Brisbane, kind of the opposite. They had a poor first half and a great second half when Adam Reynolds decided to finally show up. So both teams with a bit of momentum. However, I think the Sharks are going to be a bit too good, a bit too strong. Probably going to win this one by around 20 to 24 points. The Titans and the Panthers first up on Friday evening, and there's not a lot to say about this one. I think the Panthers are going to once again prove too good. The Titans almost didn't show up against the Cowboys, so I don't really see them being able to pull off the win here. I'd say this will be a convincing 24-plus win to the Panthers, and they will keep their season rolling. The Rabbits and the Sea Eagles is a very interesting game. on Friday night, the Rabbits coming off that loss to the Tigers and the Eagles coming off that loss to the Sharks. The Eagles probably looked the better of these two teams. The Rabbits' injuries really got to them eventually, and the Tigers, they kind of just rode the wave. And the adrenaline, even though they only played 5 days beforehand. But anyway, enough about them until later. I'm going to go for the upset with the Eagles in this one. Yeah, they haven't beaten a top 8 team yet this year, but I think a weakened Rabbits side, no Latrell, is probably going to be a good chance for them. And they did score a fair few points last weekend, so let's see if they embarrass me or not, but I'm going to go Manly by about 6 to 8 points. Time for Super Saturday, and honestly, this doesn't really feel like much of a Super Saturday. This may not be too great of a day. Anyway, the poor Warriors up against the 15th placed Raiders. I honestly do not have a clue about this game. The Warriors, as everyone knows, got walloped to the tune of 60 points. The Raiders just ran out of energy and could barely get out of their own half against the Panthers. So both teams in a little bit of a rut at the moment. Warriors in 11th after that thrashing, and the Raiders down in 15th, so they are struggling as well. If the Raiders have a chance to win a game in the near future, it's this one. So I know they're the away team, but I'm going to tip them and see how they go. I'm going to say by about 4 to 6 points. I think this one's going to be really close. It's going to be a real grind. Possibly may end up being a rather boring game. And we'll kind of see how that goes. And then we move on to the Dogs and the Roosters. I'm going to tip the Roosters here. Both these teams coming off losses. The Roosters are going to have their butts kicked this week by their coaching staff after the unacceptable display they put on Monday. So I'm going to give them. I'm gonna say they're going to win this quite comfortably, probably 24 points plus as well. The Dogs, they had a bit of fun in the first half against the Broncos, but then they fell off a cliff. So it's hard to see much changing here. They're last again. It's still going to take a while for their combinations and everything to develop. So we're just going to have to kind of see how this one plays out. But yeah, Roosters by a big margin. And one of the potential games of the round up next in the Eels and the Cowboys. This one is probably going to be the only good game of Super Saturday up in Darwin. So it's going to be quite interesting. Obviously, the Cowboys are more familiar with that sort of climate than the Eels will be. But the Eels have been taking a game up to Darwin for at least a few years now. So this one is going to be interesting. Both teams coming off really, really good wins. The Eels over the Knights, who kind of didn't show up, considering it was a bit of an occasion for them, and they were at home. And the Cowboys, well, they were at home as well, and they had a really bloody good win over the Titans. So I'm going to go with the Eels in this one. I'm going to be leaning to Eels by 8 to 10 points. I think the Cowboys have been good so far this year, and I'm probably going to have to take back my prediction of them getting the spoon. But the Eels do seem to be a little bit better in that regard. But they could challenge the Eels, and I'd be very interested to see if they do. So we're going to go with Eels by, 8 to 10 points probably. Moving on to the two games on Sunday. So the Knights and the Storm are up first. I think this one's another clear cut and dry. The Knights offered nothing in attack, and the Storm offered everything in attack last week, including the kitchen sink. So it's probably going to be another case of Storm, but by how many? Looking forward to seeing if the Knights can bounce back from their horror show against the Eels. They were ripped a new one in the press conference, so we'll see how that goes, and good luck to them. I think after the Storm scored 70 points, they're going to need a bit of luck to be able to hold them out. So I'm going to say Storm probably by 30 to 40 plus, probably closer to 40. This one could get rather ugly, just like the Storm vs Warriors did. But I think the Knights do have the potential for more points than the Warriors do at the moment, considering the caliber of players they have in their team. And finally, we have another potential game of the round, and no, that's not my bias talking. The Dragons off their 2 wins against the Knights and the Roosters versus the Tigers off of their 2 1-point wins over the Eels and the Rabbits. This one is going to be interesting. I am very much looking forward to watching it. The Dragons are favourites, obviously, but they're at home. I do tend to find that a lot of these things don't take into account recent records between teams, and not a lot of people have mentioned that the Tigers have a really good recent record over the Dragons. I think in the last 4 years, out of 7 or 8 games against each other, the Tigers, I think, have won 6 or so of them. So we do have the wood over the Dragons a little bit, and this one's going to be a heck of a game. We played down there in Wollongong both 2020 and 2021, coming away with wins both of those times. So we have no fears about heading down there and playing, and I'm looking forward to watching Luciano Leilua once again rip into his old club. This one's going to be a lot of fun. I hope to cheer myself hoarse, as always. Riding the wave. Come on, Tigers. Keep riding the wave. I am going to tip them for the upset here. I'm going to say we'll get them by 4 to 6 points. It could be a very close one, though, and I wouldn't be surprised if it ends up being another golden point game or field goal game or whatever to either team. However, that would be horrible for my heart, so I would prefer it if that wasn't the case. So go with the Tigers in the upset there, 4 to 6 points, and looking forward to a round of footy. Good luck to everyone and the teams you all support. See you next time.